Have you ever stopped to think how much money might be hidden in your free time, and you simply don't realize it? It sounds like an exaggeration, but the truth is that, every day, most people waste precious hours without even realizing that there's a real opportunity for online income there. And no, this has nothing to do with luck, special talent, or starting with a lot of money. It has to do with seeing what almost no one else sees. Maybe you're the kind of person who comes home tired from work, opens your phone just for a few minutes, and before you know it, 2 or 3 hours have passed scrolling through social media, watching videos, or jumping from one piece of content to another. Or maybe you spend hours watching series, distracted, trying to relax after a long day. There's nothing wrong with that. But let me ask you another question. What if a small part of that time could be transformed into money? Have you ever experienced that feeling, like the day ended too quickly, but at the same time you didn't manage to make any financial progress? It was exactly at that point that everything started to change for me. I also thought I didn't have time, that my routine was too full, that making money online was something far from my reality. Until I realized something simple, almost obvious, but that most people ignore. The problem was never the lack of time. It was how I used the time I already had. And this is where something comes in that can completely change how you view your financial life. Because when we talk about personal finance and wealth building, many people think of complex investments, high salaries, or rare opportunities. But what almost no one tells you is that there's a much more accessible starting point, and it's hidden in your daily routine. What you're about to discover might surprise you, especially if you think you need something grand to get started. The truth is, many ordinary people are creating online income streams using the exact same amount of time that others spend just consuming content. The difference isn't in the time available. It's in the decision to transform that time into something productive. And before you think this isn't for me or this must be too complicated, stick with me until the end, because I'm going to show you how this process can be simpler than it seems. It's not about miraculous promises or easy money, but about developing a financial growth mindset, where each small step begins to build something bigger. There's a silent shift happening, where people are moving away from being mere consumers and starting to create value, even with limited time each day. And the most interesting thing is that many of them started from scratch, with no experience, no audience, and no resources. They simply did one thing differently. They decided to use their free time strategically. Now think about it. If you continue using your time the same way you always have, in a few months or years, what will have changed? Probably not much. But if you learn to direct that time towards something that generates results, even little by little, the impact can be completely different. And this is precisely where everything starts to make sense. Because transforming free time into online income isn't about working more, but about making better use of what you already have. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how that started to happen. And before I show you this in practice, let me tell you something important. If this topic has already started to make sense to you, truly, stop for a second and tell me in the comments, what is the biggest difficulty you feel today when you think about making money online? Is it lack of time, direction, or that feeling of not knowing where to start? I read many of these comments, and it is precisely from them that I can bring more direct, more real content, closer to what you are experiencing now. And if at any point you thought, this looks different from what I've seen before, then go ahead and like this video. It might seem simple, but it helps much more than you imagine. It's what allows this type of content to reach more people who are in exactly the same situation as you, trying to improve their lives, seeking to build an online income and develop a financial growth mindset, but who haven't yet found a clear path. Now, if you want to continue learning practical ways to turn free time into income, better understand how this process works, and evolve step by step, subscribe to the channel, because the idea here isn't to show you a magic solution, but rather to build together with you a more strategic vision about money, habits, and real opportunities that exist today. Especially in the online environment, your participation here isn't just a number. It creates a kind of community of people who are looking for exactly the same thing, to break free from autopilot, to stop just consuming and start building something that truly generates results. And when you comment, like, or subscribe, you're not just helping the channel, you're strengthening this idea, showing that this type of content needs to continue existing and reaching even further. Now that you've started to see this free time in a new light, it becomes even more interesting to understand how to take the first steps in a simple and practical way, because that's exactly what begins to transform this idea into something real. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's a hidden truth that many people avoid facing. It's not just about a lack of time. It's about the decisions we make unconsciously throughout the day. Most people live on autopilot, repeating habits that seem harmless, but which, added together, create a huge impact on their financial lives. And when you start to observe the behind-the-scenes aspects of your own routine, you realize that it's not that time disappears. It's being directed towards things that don't generate growth. And there's no judgment here, because this is a common journey. Everyone has gone through phases like this. The point is that, while you continue consuming unintentionally, other people are using that same time to begin a transformation. They aren't smarter, nor do they have more resources. They just made a different decision. And it's this almost invisible difference that, over time, separates those who remain stagnant from those who begin to evolve. Perhaps you've felt this before, that slight frustration at the end of the day, as if something could have been different, as if there were hidden potential waiting to be used. This isn't a lack of ability, it's just a lack of direction. And when you start to see this clearly, your mindset changes. Small choices begin to carry weight, and you realize that every hour can be part of something bigger. This change doesn't happen all at once. It begins with awareness, with noticing patterns, questioning habits, and, above all, accepting that there is a possible path even if it's not entirely clear yet. And it's precisely at this point that many people get stuck. Because breaking out of autopilot requires courage to do things differently, even if at first it seems too small to make a difference. But that's where the turning point lies. Because what seems small today, when done consistently, transforms into something you never imagined at the beginning. And when you understand that, you start looking at your free time in a completely new way. Comment below. This makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because the real turning point doesn't happen when you earn your first money online, but when your mindset changes. It's when you realize, almost like a silent revelation, that free time was never a problem. It was always an opportunity in disguise. And this realization changes everything. Because you stop seeing your routine as a repetitive cycle and start seeing possibilities where before there was only distraction. That was the exact point where everything started to change for me. There was no magic, no luck, no grand event. It was a simple, almost invisible decision. To stop consuming for the sake of consuming and start using that same time intentionally. At first, it seemed too small to have an impact, but that's the hidden truth that nobody tells you. It's these small decisions, repeated every day, that build something bigger. And when you enter this process, something curious happens. You begin to perceive the behind-the-scenes aspects of your own evolution. Those previously lost minutes become moments of learning, testing, and experimentation. You make mistakes, adjust, improve, and without realizing it, you're already on a completely different journey from most. Not because you suddenly became smarter, but because you started acting with more awareness. But there's an important detail here. This turning point is a little scary at first, because it demands responsibility. From the moment you understand that you could be doing things differently, it becomes harder to ignore that. And that's when many people revert to autopilot, because it's more comfortable. But those who decide to continue, even without immediate guarantees, begin to build something real. And this construction doesn't start big, it starts simple, practical, and achievable. It's precisely at this point that things truly begin to take shape. Write this down. I'm on this journey too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's an invisible barrier that holds most people back before they even begin, and it has nothing to do with money, time, or opportunity. It's in the way you think. It's that inner voice that tells you that you need to know more, have more experience, wait for the right moment. When, in reality, that's just a mental construct that keeps you stuck. This is the great hidden truth. Nobody starts out ready. The idea that you need to master everything before taking the first step is one of the biggest illusions in this journey. And while you wait to feel prepared, other people are starting however they can, with what they have, learning in the process. Not because they are special, but because they understood that action generates clarity, not the other way around. Another misconception is that making money online requires large investments or extraordinary skills. But if you look behind the scenes at those who have already started, you'll see that most began simply, with limited resources and a lot of testing. The difference wasn't the starting point, but the decision to persevere even when it seemed too small to make a difference. And perhaps the most dangerous belief is thinking, "This isn't for me." Because that phrase carries a silent limitation that blocks any possibility of transformation. When you start questioning that, something changes. You begin to see that it's not about luck or talent, but about consistent choices over time. This shift in mindset is what opens the door to real evolution. Because, from the moment you stop seeking perfection and start seeking progress, everything becomes lighter, more possible, more accessible. And it's precisely at this point that things cease to be just ideas and begin to become practical. Comment below. I can start. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because when you understand the central concept behind all of this, the way you perceive your own time changes completely. It's not just about making money online, but about a transformation in how you position yourself in the world. It's about moving away from the role of passive consumer and assuming, even gradually, the role of value creator. This is the silent turning point that almost no one notices. While most people are focused only on consuming content, getting distracted, or passing the time, there is a small group that has decided to use that same time to build something. And here's the simple and powerful point. It's not about having more time, it's about redirecting the time you already have. This change in mindset seems small, but its impact throughout the journey is enormous. Because every time you exchange a few minutes of consumption for creation, you are planting something. It could be content, a skill, an idea. At first it seems insignificant, almost imperceptible, but that's exactly how any growth process begins. Behind the scenes, far from the visible results, where few have the patience to continue. And the most interesting thing is that you don't need to start big. That's another important revelation. Building happens in the simple things, in the basics done well, in consistency. That's where the transformation begins to take shape, even if there's no immediate return yet. And this requires a new way of thinking, where you begin to value the process, not just the result. When you internalize this concept, everything changes. Your free time ceases to be just rest or distraction and becomes a tool, a real opportunity to create something that can grow over time. And it is at this moment that you begin to realize that there is a path, and it is more accessible than it seems. Comment below. Now I understand. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because understanding the concept is important, but it's in practice that the transformation truly begins to happen. And here's another revelation that few people talk about. The first steps don't need to be perfect, they just need to exist. Most people freeze because they want total clarity before acting. But clarity comes precisely from action. From testing, from the small movements you make even without having all the answers. Think about it. If you have 1 or 2 free hours a day, that's enough to start something simple. It could be learning a digital skill, offering a basic service, creating content about something you already know, or even exploring ways to earn money online that require more consistency than experience. The point isn't to choose the perfect path. It's to choose a feasible one, because that's how you start to move forward. Behind the scenes of any growth journey, there's trial, error, adjustment, and evolution. And the sooner you enter this cycle, the faster you begin to understand what works for you. It's not about getting it right the first time, it's about not standing still. Every small action carries a greater impact than it seems because it breaks the old pattern and creates a new rhythm. And there's something even more important at this beginning. You start to develop a new mindset, a mindset of building, of progress, of conscious decisions. This changes how you see your time, your choices, and even your priorities. What was once just another empty moment now becomes a real opportunity for advancement. And when you notice this happening, even subtly, a different kind of confidence begins to emerge, not based on promises, but on experience. And it is precisely from this confidence that everything begins to gain more strength and direction. Comment below. I started with what I have now. I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because everything I'm telling you didn't come from theory or something I simply read somewhere. It came from practice, from behind the scenes of my own journey. In the beginning, I was exactly where you might be now, without a clear direction, with doubts, thinking I needed something more to start. And the truth is, I wasted a lot of time waiting for that ideal moment that never came. Until one ordinary day, with nothing special happening, I made a simple decision to use a small portion of my time differently. It wasn't anything grand. It was about 40 minutes, an hour a day. And honestly, at first, it seemed like it wouldn't amount to anything. But even so, I continued. Testing, making mistakes, learning, gradually understanding how that process worked. There were times when I thought about stopping because the results weren't coming quickly. And that's where one of the biggest revelations of this journey comes in. Growth happens first, internally, in your mindset, before it shows on the outside. I started to realize that I was more focused, more aware of my decisions, more attentive to the value of my time. And that, in itself, was already a transformation. Over time, small things started to happen. Simple, almost symbolic results. But they proved to me that this path made sense, and that was enough to keep going. Because when you see the first sign, however small, your perspective changes. You stop doubting so much and start to see possibilities. Looking back, what struck me most wasn't how much I earned at the beginning. It was realizing that it all started with something extremely basic, accessible, and achievable. Nothing unrealistic. Just a different decision being repeated every day. And that's exactly what many people underestimate, because the beginning seems too small to be taken seriously. But that's where everything starts to take shape. Comment below. I can start like this too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because there's a silent mistake that prevents many people from moving forward, even after they've started. And it's not about a lack of ability, but about how decisions are made along the way. Most people start with energy, motivation, a desire to change, but they don't sustain that long enough to generate real impact. Behind the scenes, what happens is almost invisible. A person tests something for a few days, doesn't see immediate results, begins to doubt, changes direction, tries something else, and enters a cycle of constant restarts. It seems like they are making progress, but in practice, they are not building anything solid. This is one of the most common hidden truths in this process. Another issue that holds many people back is the pursuit of perfection. The idea that everything needs to be aligned before moving forward. But this mentality creates a blockage disguised as preparation. While you try to make everything perfect, time passes. And consistency, which truly generates transformation, is left aside. And then there's the comparison. Looking at those who are already ahead and thinking you're behind, that you started late, that you have no chance. This weakens your mindset and takes the focus away from what really matters, your own progress. Because every journey has its own pace, and accelerating the process in the wrong way only increases frustration. What truly makes the difference isn't starting off right, it's continuing, even when it seems small, even when no one is watching, even when the results haven't yet appeared. That's when the real building happens, and when you understand that, something changes. You stop looking for shortcuts and start valuing the process. And it's precisely this change that begins to create consistent results over time. Comment below. I'm going to continue anyway. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because all of this converges on something that few people consciously develop: a financial growth mindset. And no, this isn't just about making more money. It's about how you see opportunities, decisions, and the very process of evolution. There's a very clear difference between those who remain in the same place and those who begin to move forward. And this difference almost always lies in the way of thinking, not in external conditions. Those who don't develop this mindset tend to see free time only as rest or escape, which isn't wrong, but limits the potential for transformation. Those who begin to evolve, however, start to see this same time as a strategic resource, something that can be directed towards building new possibilities. And this change is silent. It happens behind the scenes, but it generates a huge impact throughout the journey. Another important revelation is that financial growth doesn't come from isolated decisions, but from patterns. Small choices made consistently every day create a cumulative effect that many people underestimate. It's as if you're building something invisible at first, but which, over time, begins to become concrete. And that's exactly where most people give up, because they still can't see the results. But those who persevere, even without immediate recognition, begin to develop something even more valuable: clarity. Clarity about what works, about their own pace, about how to improve. And this strengthens confidence, not based on expectation, but on real experience. And when that mindset takes hold, you stop relying on motivation and start acting with intention. Every decision begins to have more purpose. Every action gains more meaning. And that's when the game really changes. Comment below. My mindset is changing. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because when you start to see all of this in an integrated way, a vision of the future emerges that previously seemed too distant. Not that fanciful idea of immediate success, but a real construction, based on conscious and consistent decisions. You begin to realize that you're not just trying to make money online. You're creating a path that can change the direction of your life over time. And that's one of the biggest revelations of this journey. The impact doesn't appear all at once. It builds up behind the scenes. Every small action, every adjustment, every moment you decide not to go back to autopilot, all of that accumulates. And when you look ahead, you realize you're not the same person anymore. Your mindset has evolved, your way of acting has changed, and what once seemed impossible begins to become achievable. The freedom that many people seek doesn't come from a single result, but from a continuous process of growth. It's the ability to generate new opportunities, to not depend on a single source, to know that you can create value with what you have. And this changes not only your financial reality, but also how you position yourself in life. And the most interesting thing is that it all starts in a simple, almost imperceptible way. A different decision, repeated over time, opens up new possibilities. That's how transformation happens, not with giant leaps, but with consistent steps. And when you truly understand this, you realize it's no longer a question of whether it works or not, but of how far you can go if you continue on this path. Comment below. I'll go all the way. And if you've made it this far, you've probably already realized that this wasn't just about making money online. It was about seeing your time, your decisions, and your own journey in a different way. And if this type of content resonated with you, subscribing to the channel ends up being almost a natural step, because that's how you continue to follow practical ideas, reflections, and paths that can help you build something real, at your own pace. And there's something I really like to see here: when someone gets to the end and leaves a sign that they've truly absorbed the message. So, if you're still here with me, comment, "I'm with you until the end." This shows not only that you've made it this far, but that you're open to applying all of this to your own reality. And if at any point during this video you felt that connection, that feeling of "this is different," leave a like. It's a simple way to show that this type of conversation needs to continue, and it helps this content reach more people who are also on this quest for transformation. But it doesn't stop here. There's a video over there that perfectly complements everything we've talked about. Click on it and continue with me there, because this journey only starts to make sense when you keep moving forward.